Right then, the season is almost back. Manchester City in the Community Shield, Charity Shield, if you're of a certain vintage, is still a friendly at the end of the day. And winning it didn't save David Moyes and shouldn't have saved David Moyes. It's not a trophy. It's a curtain raiser. It's a little bit of a spicy friendly, isn't it? I would still be looking to use this as getting minutes, trying to implement a style of play. And it's also the first opportunity for the lads that was involved in the Copa America and the Euros to sort of get back in amongst the squad and get some real minutes. I thought I would have heard of some behind closed doors matches being played this week or next week, and I haven't heard about them yet. So unless that changes between me recording this and this getting edited and going out, I don't think that's going to happen. That would have been a nice to have, I think, because so many of our important players, from Zirkzee to Bruno to Martinez, Mainu, just have not featured with some of the other players that have been out on pre-season. Now, the curtain raiser kicks off tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. kickoff, as we going to look to try and put a bit of a warning out across City's bow. Now, City, I don't think have had the greatest of pre-seasons. I don't think the energy at the club feels well. I don't know if that's like the looming shadow of the 115 charges leaning over them or not, or whether I'm just misreading it and they're going absolutely snot at us. That's on the cards. It just feels like there's an opportunity here to sort of continue a little bit of the good momentum that's come, that has stalled a little bit with the lack of transfer activity. Genuinely, I think I did a live at the weekend where I said, yeah, I expect there to have been a couple of transfers happen this week, and they've so far not happened. So again, unless they happen between now and this getting released, I assume they're going to be early next week. If not, I'm flabbergasted as to why that's not happened. Now, City have lost their last 3 Community Shield games, failing to beat Leicester, Liverpool and Arsenal in that run, and will be keen to make amends this weekend, with it being United. United head into the Community Shield on the back of pretty disappointing pre-season campaign, with the caveat that there was obviously a significant percentage of our better players deeply involved in the Copa America or in the Euros. We just got 2 wins from 5 matches, 1 draw, 2 losses, with that 3-0 defeat against Liverpool, which did get the sort of overreaction we expected it to get, but it is what it is. Pep sort of started to set his team up in a 4-2-5, and the bright amongst you are going to be like, wait a minute, that's 11 players. It is. It's because the goalkeeper's kind of getting in between the 2 centre-halves and that box midfield in the middle of the park for them. And they're dropping with the attacking midfielders and using this goalkeeper a little bit to try and get more numerical superiority, because pressing is getting a little bit more sophisticated, and because every team is going towards playing out. You've got to adapt, and you've got to try and do new things to try and get through that press. Guardiola uses the back 4 in defence, but a back 3 in attack, which means that one defender then pushes up and becomes a number 6. You've seen that quite regularly with John Stones really effectively. That creates more options in the centre and also less space between the players. And Pep likes it because it prioritises playing through the middle of the park. And if you can own the centre of the park, you're doing well in football, because that's the one place that teams will traditionally try and leave their players and force you wide. So if you can own that with the ball, you're on to a winner. Now, he needs 1 player high and 1 player wide to sort of pull apart the opposition back line, and that's where they're going to look to create advantages in the midfield areas, because they're going to make gaps bigger than what the opposition would like to have. And if they leave players in acres of space, City will pass them the ball and people will start moving over there. And if you move over there and the defence shuffle is good, they'll come back, they'll recycle and go the other way. And they're just probing to see somebody switch off. Another purpose is they keep the players in the middle because it also shortens the distance between them. When they're looking for that, like when you're trying to break down a low block, which is what typically teams will defend against Manchester City in, width is how you're going to defeat a low block. And you defeat it with patience and width. When you've got the ball going from one side of the pitch to the other, you want that to be fluid, and you don't want that to be taking 25-yard passes every single time you want to try and connect the next dot, because those passes get seen, they can be telegraphed, and if you leave a load of players in the middle of the pitch, it's very easy to connect those passes a lot quicker. So it means that the opposition have less time to push up, less time to press. They're not sure exactly who to press. And it's harder to do, especially when they start playing on one touch. You're just not going to do it. John Stones has been frequently used as that inverting player, as I mentioned a second ago. Usually a centre-half that pushes up and becomes in that number sort of 6 kind of area. But he's also used fullbacks. Rico Lewis has done it. And also Akanji has done it in a similar way for him as well. In a final third, City set up in what's now quite a familiar 3-2-5 sort of formation. It's the same as the low build-up without the keeper and between the centre-halves, really. And they're just looking to try and overload an opposition backline or see if you will drag a player in to mark someone. So you've got to be bold, you've got to be brave, but you've also got to be wary. Most teams' defensive principle is to be +1. So if they put 5 against your 4, you want to put 6 in against that 4. If you put 6 in, you've just eliminated where your midfield is, and that's where they're going to cause you problems. The 2 holding midfielders generally don't position themselves on the same line. One will always be a little bit offset and a little bit deeper, but it depends on where the ball is. That allows the holding midfielders then to play between themselves, because this is, again, Pep gets a lot of credit for Johan Cruyff principles here. Cruyff hated the flat ball. A flat ball intercepted beats 2 men is the old phrase going. So you want players to be playing the ball on angles more. So you don't really necessarily want that flat. You want it to be a little bit more on that angle. But they also use one-touch play to move it around with whoever's in midfield to try and keep it moving at a pace that is very difficult for the opposition to organise and get hold of. And a massive aspect of City's high possession build-up is that they keep super, super high line. That enables them to counter-press because they're closer to the centre and they've got more men to be able to get a grip of the ball and squeeze. But also having players close to the centre that can win it back means it's difficult for the opposition to get the ball and recycle possession and then establish their own level of dominance with the ball. The backline also shortens the distance between the players, shortening the length of time and the distance between the passes, and prevents the opposition pushing their defence up as well. So it's multifaceted. Star man for Manchester City, I would expect Erling Haaland. He's doing all right, I guess. 90 goals in 98 games. We all would have expected far more than that for him, but I guess City are just happy with him until they can get a decent striker in. Centre-back options for United are weak, and that is the worst player that you want to come up against while you've got those concerns. He's always a threat, he's always alert, he's always looking at running beyond. You've got to limit his service and limit the space for him to run into, because he's pretty good at it, I'll be honest with you. Right, listen up everyone, we've all got our own bad habits, right? Whether it's biting your nails, spending too much time on your phone, or, the other one. It's tough to break free. But what if I told you there was a new healthy way to handle certain cravings, introducing Fume? Now, that's the sponsor of today's video, and it's a leader in the flavoured air category, and it's a revolutionary flavoured air device. It smells like chewing gum. Right, it smells awesome, to be fair. It's a revolutionary flavoured air device that is designed to be the perfect alternative and an enjoyable way to fill that void in a natural, guilt-free way, giving you something to reach for without any of the downsides. Now, it's an award-winning flavoured air device, and it's actually really cool looking, and it's quite satisfying to use. It's really well made, it's quite weighty, it's got a high quality design, and it looks cool. It's not addictive, there's no nicotine, no batteries, no toxic flavours, and it's a pretty good way to replace a bad habit with a good one. Now, you can get all sorts of different flavours. There's cinnamon hearts, there's black licorice, there's going to be something for everyone. This is spearmint, and it's pretty popular because it's refreshing, gives a nice clean sensation without none of the guilt. It draws flavour into your mouth, not your lungs. It's total guilt-free alternative if you're trying to ditch a bad habit. There's no vapor, you can use it anywhere, and it's going to help with things like anxiety. There's all sorts of magnets, snaps and clicks, and all you got to do is sort of spin it around and adjust how much airflow comes in. If you've got a bit of a habit that you're trying to kick, then this is a bit of a game changer. If you're looking to replace a bad habit with something new and something that's guilt-free, then there's over 300,000 people have had a bit of a success story with trying it, and there's a limited time only. If you use the code Stephen Howson, that's STEPHENHOWSON, then you're going to get a free Fume base when you order your journey pack. So head over to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com. Use the code Stephen Howson or scan the QR code on the screen to get your free Fume base right now. My United 11 to play this Manchester City team. I'm not confident of a win here, and I'm not confident of beating them because I just don't think there's the familiarity in the team, and I just think there's just a little bit more needed. The injuries have have hurt us already, especially Højlund and Euro. I'd be a lot happier going into this game with that because it'd mean that we had a bit of firepower off the bench, but it is what it is. I think we're going to go with Onana in net. I think we're going to go with Dalot, Amas, Evans and Martinez as your back four. Casemiro and Mainu as the midfield with Bruno ahead. Rashford, Ahmad and Zirkzee. That's what I think we're going to go with. I could make a case for playing a McTominay over a Zirkzee and maybe going to a slight bit more of a diamond and looking a little bit like we did in the cup final. But I think what we're looking for out of this is for us to try and establish our way of playing. I think that's important here. This isn't about, can we just come up with a system to be able to beat them? This is, can we start establishing our style of play so we are better once the season begins? Because winning the Charity Shield and then coming fifth is a bad season for Manchester United, but losing the Charity Shield, coming top 4 or 3 and winning a trophy is a good season for Manchester United. Now, the star player for Manchester United in this, I'm hoping it's Marcus Rashford. He is a big game player, transitional counter-attacking threat. That's going to be absolutely vital with how high the line is from Manchester City. He's looked pretty sharp in pre-season without really hitting top gear. I'm going to need him to bring that level of sharpness. There's no Kyle Walker, which has been a little bit of kryptonite for him. And I think there's a good chance he's going to have a decent game here. He had a good game in the final. Let's see if he can have another good game against them here. How do we beat them? First and foremost, you've got to be good on the transition, and Ahmad could be real key to this as well because he's been excellent in pre-season. But you've got to be on form in the transition because City are vulnerable to the counter, and arguably more vulnerable to the counter than they are usually, so you've got to make it count. Beware of Vardiol because he's become a real threat down the left-hand side for them, almost like a left winger with how he arrives at times. So Ahmad's going to have to do a bit of work and make sure he gets back and defend. You got to stop Haaland being found by KDB. And then you got to have like a decent mid-block. Have a high enough line that you're squeezing and not giving them loads of space, but stop the ball somewhere. Don't just collapse into your box. Let's stop them nice and high, just over the halfway line, and let's do it. Now, I don't believe United have got the personnel to go and man-mark City or take the possession off them or press high and aggressively for 90 minutes. And I also don't want to see us sitting in a low block and trying to soak up pressure and do what we've done under Ole at the Etihad. There's got to be a bit of a middle ground somewhere where we can find the right style of play. And even if it doesn't work for full 90 minutes, like it didn't work against Liverpool for full 90 minutes, but the chances were being created there and the goals were preventable goals. So I think you go away from the Liverpool game going, do you know what? We learned some stuff here that we can take on into the season. And I want the exact same attitude going into the Manchester City game, ideally. Mark and marshal the zones of the pitch that City typically play through, be effective and ruthless on the counter-attack, and rather than park the bus, park some zones and stop City playing in those areas rather than completely sitting off and parking the bus. But the key to this one is don't live in our box. Don't live in our box. Let's take the game to them a little bit higher up the pitch, recover the ball, have less distance to travel than when you're making your attacks. A nice mid to high block where you're not totally passive in defence, know when to engage, and get right into them. And we'll see how we do. Does that sound like a plan to everyone? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.